My family called me the unemployed one. They laughed at me across the holiday table, passed jokes around like I wasn't even sitting there, and said I'd never become anyone important. But 48 hours later, their TVs lit up with my face. And while they were still arguing about my failed life, Time magazine was preparing to announce something none of them could have imagined. When the broadcaster said, "This year's Person of the Year is," my entire world shifted. And so did theirs. If you think the insults were bad, wait until you hear what they did when the cameras turned toward me. I knew the moment I walked through the front door that this Christmas dinner would be like every other one, loud, polished, and designed for comparison. My family didn't gather to reconnect. They gathered to measure. And I, apparently, had become the stick they used to prove everyone else's life was going better. The dining room glowed with gold-trimmed plates and wine glasses polished within an inch of their lives. My mother loved presentation. She said it made the family look successful. Ironically, she never asked how I was doing, she only cared how I appeared. I had barely taken my seat when my cousin Jenna leaned across the table, smirking. "So, how's unemployment life?" she asked, loud enough for both sides of the table to hear. A burst of laughter followed, sharp, synchronized, rehearsed. My aunt clapped her hands. "Oh, she's been off work for what, 8 months? Must be nice to take such a long vacation." "It's not a vacation," I said softly, but my voice disappeared beneath the chatter. My sister, the family's shining prodigy, raised her glass. "Maybe she's finding herself," she said, her tone dripping with theatrical sympathy. "Some people just bloom slower." Another wave of laughter. They didn't know that I had left my corporate job intentionally. They didn't know that the unemployment they mocked was actually me pouring every hour I had into building a social impact tech platform that was already changing thousands of lives. They didn't ask, and honestly, they didn't care. My father carved the turkey like he was avoiding eye contact on purpose. "You should think about applying to real companies again," he said. "Something stable. Something normal." Jenna added, "There's a cashier position at my office. You'd be great at it. You don't need experience, just a smile." I swallowed the tightness in my throat. They saw nothing but a failure sitting at their table. A disappointment wrapped in holiday lights. But what none of them knew, not my parents, not my sister, not even the cousin who loved the sound of her own mockery, was that in less than a week the world would see me very differently. And so would they. The first round of mockery was bad enough. But like every holiday with my family, the insults didn't stop once they got their first taste. They sharpened them, passed them around, and served them like side dishes. It started with my uncle clearing his throat dramatically. "You know," he said, looking straight at me, "your generation just doesn't have grit. Back in my day, we didn't quit jobs without a backup plan." "I didn't quit without a plan," I murmured. He waved a dismissive hand. Sure. You're working on something. Everybody's working on something. That's what people say when they're not doing anything." My sister let out a laugh that sounded like a bell chiming over someone's funeral. "Honestly," she added, "you should have stayed at your old job. At least then we could say you were employed." My mother joined in, as if she had been waiting for her cue. "We're all worried about you," she said. "You're 32. You can't afford to drift around and pretend it's part of your creative journey. Life isn't a movie." Across the table, my cousin Max chimed in. "There's nothing wrong with starting small, you know. Even working in retail teaches discipline. Maybe that's what you need." Laughter again. Every voice except mine. My cheeks burned, but not from embarrassment, from restraint. They didn't know that the little project I was working on had just crossed 1 million active users in developing communities. They didn't know that 3 international NGOs had emailed me that week asking for partnerships. They didn't know that the reason I left my job was because I'd been invited to speak at a global tech summit. They didn't know any of it because every time I tried to share something meaningful, someone cut me off with a joke. "Maybe we should start a GoFundMe for her," Jenna said. "Help the poor unemployed souls survive." The table erupted again. I pressed my hands together in my lap, holding myself together piece by piece. Let them talk, I thought. Let them laugh. They believed they were humiliating me, but in reality, they were setting the stage for the most spectacular humiliation of their own lives. And it was coming far sooner than they imagined. Just as my cousin Jenna launched into another joke about me sleeping until noon like a true unemployed queen, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Once. Then again. Then a third time. I ignored it at first. Nothing that happened on my phone could possibly compete with the circus unfolding at the dinner table. But something in the tone of the vibration, sharp, insistent, made my pulse skip. While the rest of the family argued over whether I would make a better barista or dog walker, I slipped my hand under the tablecloth and checked the screen. Email from Time Magazine editorial board. Subject: urgent. Congratulations. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. My eyes scanned the first line. You have been selected as one of the final 3 nominees for Time Person of the Year. And L.R. Skane. The room suddenly felt too small, too noisy, too unreal. Selected. Me. The email continued. Your work has made extraordinary impact on global humanitarian efforts. We request your presence in New York within 48 hours for a confidential recorded interview and feature shoot. My hand trembled so hard the phone nearly slipped from my grasp. While my family mocked me as the failure, the disappointment, the aimless wanderer, some of the most influential leaders in the world had apparently been watching my work. I reread the email twice, then hid the phone before anyone noticed. If they saw the expression on my face, the whole table would fall silent. And I didn't want silence, not yet. Let them laugh a little longer. Let them believe I'm nothing. Because the universe had just whispered the truth to me in a way none of them ever would. My life was about to change forever. And their laughter would be the soundtrack to the greatest twist of their lives. I had barely recovered from reading the email when my phone lit up again, this time not with a vibration but with a full, sharp ringtone cutting through the chatter at the table. I didn't even recognize the number. But something in me knew. I excused myself before anyone could make another joke, stepping out onto the cold front porch, my breath rising in pale clouds. The moment I closed the door behind me, the noise of my family's laughter muffled into a distant hum. I answered. Hello, is this Ava Reynolds? A calm voice asked. Yes, I whispered. This is Margaret Hale, senior editor at Time Magazine. I'm calling to personally inform you that your humanitarian tech initiative has been selected as our lead feature for this year's Person of the Year issue. I closed my eyes. The world seemed to tilt under me. She continued, her tone warm but professional. We have been following your platform's progress for months. The scale of its impact is unprecedented. Your system has provided real-time crisis mapping for over 42 countries, coordinating rescue aid in ways that didn't exist before. You've saved lives, Miss Reynolds. I gripped the porch railing, steadying myself. We need you in New York within the next 48 hours, she said. Your final interview will be recorded for our global broadcast. And, between us, her voice softened, you should prepare for a historic announcement. A shakiness spread through my chest, half disbelief, half triumph. Thank you, was all I managed. We'll take care of travel, accommodations, everything. Just bring yourself and your story. The really time-sensitive as a low might make me defast as a. When the call ended, I stared out into the winter night, numb and alive all at once. Inside, my family was still laughing at the version of me they had invented. Out here, Time Magazine had just revealed who I actually was. And soon, the entire world would know. When I stepped back inside, the warmth of the dining room felt different, thicker, almost suffocating. My family was still mid-laughter. Still trading jokes about my so-called freestyle unemployment. None of them even noticed I had been gone. I walked to my chair quietly, picked up my coat from the back of it, and folded it over my arm. My mother finally looked up. Where are you going? Dinner isn't over. Jenna smirked. Probably off to another imaginary job interview. My sister added. Or maybe she's meeting her passion project. Her air quotes were so dramatic it almost looked like she was conducting an orchestra. I smiled, not sarcastic, not bitter, just calm. A kind of calm none of them had ever seen on me before. I actually do have something important to take care of, I said, slipping my arms into my coat sleeves. My father frowned, fork halfway to his mouth. At 8 p.m., on Christmas? Be serious. I am, I replied gently. For the first time in a long time, they stared at me as if I'd spoken in another language. I grabbed my bag, steady and unhurried. Jenna laughed again. Sure, Ava. Good luck with whatever this is. Expensive now. I paused by the doorway, turning back just long enough to imprint the moment into my memory, their smugness, their certainty, their absolute blindness. If everything goes as planned, I said softly, I won't need luck. I closed the door behind me, stepping out into the cold night. They thought I was running away from humiliation. But in truth, I was walking straight toward history. New York felt like another planet the moment I arrived. Sharp winter air, skyscrapers carved into the sky, a kind of electricity humming through every street. Time magazine had arranged everything, the car waiting at the airport, the hotel suite overlooking Manhattan, even a personal assistant who handed me an itinerary printed on thick paper I was almost afraid to touch. The next morning, I walked into the Time studio, where massive screens glowed with red letters, Person of the Year, Special Broadcast. Crew members rushed around adjusting lights and microphones, but the moment I stepped inside, a woman with a headset approached me with a warm smile. You're Ava Reynolds, she said, as if confirming a myth. We've been waiting for you. She guided me to hair and makeup, then to wardrobe. For the first time in my life, professionals fussed over the way I looked because the world would soon be watching. When they positioned me in front of the camera, bright lights washing over me, I felt something inside settle. All the nights I'd worked alone, all the times I questioned whether my project mattered, all the moments my family mocked my dream, they converged into this single, breath-steady moment. The producer raised his hand. We're live in 3, 2, 1. I have no Mexican destaldes. The screen behind me illuminated with images of disaster zones, refugee camps, remote villages, places where my platform had sent aid faster than any traditional system ever had. A montage played of volunteers using my technology, drones mapping flooded regions, medics receiving real-time coordinates, rescue teams navigating collapsed cities guided by data. Then the host turned to me. Tonight, she announced, we reveal the Time Person of the Year. Someone whose work has fundamentally changed how the world responds to crisis. My heart pounded, but I kept my expression steady. And that person, she continued, smiling, is Ava Reynolds. The applause was thunderous, echoing through the studio. Camera flashes burst like fireworks. The words Person of the Year appeared behind me in towering red letters. Across the country, in my family's living room while they lounged on the sofa after dinner, half watching the broadcast, the moment landed like an earthquake. Their unemployed daughter, their failure, the one they laughed at less than 48 hours ago. Her face was now on national television, receiving one of the most prestigious honors in the world. Later I learned what happened. My cousin dropped her wine glass. My mother covered her mouth. My father stood up slowly, staring at the screen as if he didn't recognize me. But I recognized myself finally. I stood on that stage not as the version of me they had reduced, but as the woman I had fought to become. And there was no going back. The moment the broadcast ended, my phone erupted like a fire alarm, vibrations, calls, messages flooding in so fast the screen froze twice. But the notifications I noticed first were from the family group chat, a place where I had been nothing more than a punchline 2 nights earlier. My mother's message came first. Ava, why didn't you tell us? We're so proud of you. Then my sister. Oh my God, everyone is texting me about you. You should have prepared us. We would have celebrated you properly. End quote. My cousin Jenna, the loudest voice in my humiliation buffet, added, Girl? Time magazine? Why didn't you say anything? We all knew you'd do something big someday. The whiplash was almost comical. Last week, I was the family embarrassment. Tonight, I was suddenly their shared accomplishment. Even my father, who had barely looked at me during dinner, sent a message that looked like it was typed with trembling hands. Ava, can we talk? We owe you an apology. We didn't understand. Explique. I put my phone down. Their words didn't hurt. What hurt was realizing that validation only came when the world forced them to see me. They didn't apologize for the ridicule, the dismissiveness, the way they belittled my dreams. They apologized because the spotlight exposed their behavior. They hadn't changed. They were just afraid of looking small. Meanwhile, journalists were emailing me. Global organizations wanted to collaborate. Influential CEOs were asking to schedule meetings. My family wasn't proud of what I built. They were proud of what they could claim once it became valuable. And for the first time in my life, I saw the difference clearly. Their regret was real, but not for the reasons they believed. The morning after the broadcast, New York looked different to me, not louder or brighter, but somehow clearer, as if the city itself had stepped aside to make room for what came next. I sat by the hotel window, watching the sunrise spill between the skyscrapers, my inbox overflowing with opportunities I had only once dared to imagine. Global relief organizations wanted partnerships. Universities requested guest lectures. Investors offered funding without hesitation. And for the first time, I didn't feel the urge to run back home and share the news, seeking approval that had never truly existed. I realized something quietly profound. I didn't need my family's validation. I never had. Later that week, I returned to my office, a space that had grown from a rented desk in a shared co-working room into a full team of engineers, analysts, and advisors. They greeted me with cheers, but also with a deep, genuine respect that came not from titles or accolades, but from shared purpose. As I walked through the halls, seeing the real impact of what we'd built, I felt the ground beneath me shift. Not with fear, but with belonging. My family sent more messages over the next few days, long paragraphs, sudden warmth, invitations to catch up, to celebrate together, to talk things through. I responded kindly, but with distance. Boundaries weren't punishment. They were clarity. I wasn't shutting them out. I was simply stepping into a future where I no longer had to shrink to fit their expectations. A future where my work spoke louder than their doubt. A future where I finally stood, fully, in my own light. And as I prepared for the next chapter, meetings, new projects, global collaborations, I understood something simple and liberating. I had not just proved them wrong. I had proved myself right. If you're still here listening to my story, thank you, truly. Living through years of being dismissed, judged, or underestimated wasn't easy, and maybe some of you know that feeling too. So before this video ends, I want to ask something from you. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my place? Do you think I handled it right? I'd love to hear your thoughts, because none of us grow alone. And if my journey meant something to you, if it reminded you that your worth is never defined by someone else's laughter, then, please, support this channel. Like the video, share it, and subscribe so you won't miss the next story. We're building a community here, a place where people who were once overlooked can finally feel seen. My advice? Believe in your work long before anyone else does. Sometimes the world recognizes you only after you've already proven yourself in silence.